Hi, I'm Jerry McGlothlin, host of Special Ops. What's next for Donald Trump? What has happened in the past with Donald Trump? I say, whatever you think, never, ever, ever underestimate Donald J. Trump. Let me say that again. Never underestimate Donald J. Trump. One more time. Never underestimate Donald J. Trump. Why? He's about to deliver the knockout punch. I'm telling you, think about it logically. Trump shocked the left, recovering from 6 mega below the beltway punches. I mean, one thing is below the belt in fighting and boxing, but below the beltway means, I mean, the standard operating procedure in the beltway in Washington is below the belt. So for them to go below the beltway, they're doing even worse than normal below the belt stuff we've never seen before in United States history. And the opposition will be mega shocked when Trump delivers a seventh knockout punch to win a second term. Let's review. Punch number one, pow! Early in the 2016 primaries, the left and that lame stream media treated Trump as a clown, as a joke. Well, the joke was on them because he won the primary. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Punch number two, the left and the wacky lamestream media coronated Hillary Clinton as president, a bit too early, I might add. Punch number three, the Russia hoax. That was supposed to do him in. Third time's a charm. It was so embarrassingly unfounded that any self-respecting opponent would hide after that or fade into oblivion. Please share this video. It's getting good. I got a good feeling about what I'm going to come up with here on number 4, 5, 6, and the 7 for the knockout punch. Punch number 4, a brazen socialist communist coalition of liars in media and the political arena concocted that weirdo Mueller, whatever investigation. Now remember how Robert Mueller entered the ring issuing the first punch. Well rehearsed, first round, shadow boxing by himself. Boom, 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 boom. And with no opponent. His first round looked kind of promising. But do you remember after his opening statement that he probably rehearsed 100 times, it was abysmal. I mean, even liberals had to admit it was abysmal. They had to switch strategies after this because when Team Trump grilled him, Mueller collapsed like a cheap suit. Hugely embarrassing to the degree you'd think that the communist socialist left would have given up with dignity, but there is no dignity there. They're not about dignity. They're not about doing the right thing. Why should it shock us? Punch number 3. They thought, okay, Robert Mueller didn't do it for us. Let me see. Total exoneration. Nothing on him. I know. We will impeach the president. Yeah, that's the ticket. The spoil sport socialists waged an impeachment trial that was baseless and an utter waste of time and a waste of millions of dollars of taxpayer money. Punch number 6, pow, COVID. Now that was a tricky one. That was a below the belt punch that was even low for Beltway insiders because with the newfangled coronavirus, a variant on the common cold, I might add, a rhino, the Marxist left and the Democrat and media lackeys set out not only to destroy the United States, but the entire world in their attempt to overthrow Trump in their coup. I mean, they make no mistake about it. This is a coup. It is a coup. It is a coup. And historians in the future will call it a coup. And we'll be thinking, oh, duh, why didn't we know it was a coup? Did you know it was a coup? Did you think it was a coup? But they never told us that on ABC, NBC, MSNBC. I mean, not even CNN. The New York Slimes never told us that. The Washington Compost never told us it was a coup. Oh, Nathan, no, it was a coup. It was a coup. Share this video. Let your friends, neighbors, and enemies even know it was a coup, and we're in the middle of the coup. They're trying to take a common cold variant and weaponize it, weaponizing COVID-19 to take this world's strongest economy in world history and trash it and take the world economy, the whole economy of the world, down in a free fall with it. But Donald Trump and the USA emerge in a V-shaped recovery, the likes of which has not been seen ever since the biblical times, about 2,500 years ago, when those two lepers with nothing to lose say, we got leprosy, we're hungry, runaway inflation, there's no food, there's a famine, we're besieged by enemies. We got nothing to lose. We're going to walk out of here. So they left their besieged city, wandered off into the enemy camp. Lo and behold, to find it empty. Everybody was dead or gone. Famine over. Runaway inflation fixed in a day. Now, we can't compete with that. That was the biggest economic turnaround in world history. But Trump gets a second, or at least the first in 2,500 years. And yet, does he get credit for that? No. And speaking of money, he gets paid and he doesn't take his money. He doesn't even take money for this abuse. He donates it to charity each time. He's not taking a penny from taxpayer dollars. Whatever they force him to take, he gives away immediately, every quarter. Punch number 7. This is a good one. Punch number 7, and a counter punch in the works. Okay, they tried to steal the election with their punch number 7. And Team Trump, got a counter punch that's going to take back what the socialist Marxist leftist has stolen. But you want to know what's so crazy about this boxing match here? After being defeated 6 times, the liberal left have been defeated 6 times, as we indicated here. Those poor sport losers seem blind to the fact that it's a trend. Each time they act like it was a fluke. No, it's a pattern. Go to the odds makers in Vegas. What's the odds of even flipping a coin 6 times in a row and it being heads or tails? Astronomically against that. So this trend is that Trump will out-Trump the left every time. Just when you think he's down and out, like in one of those movies you see, Rocky is down, he's on the ropes, he's barely can get up. He gets up there, boom, 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 boom. The name Trump can't be by accident. Sometimes I think God has a sense of humor, allowing people to have the names they have. But the left keeps acting as if they're the winners and Trump is a loser. When's the last time you've seen ABC, NBC, CBS, any of those crazy alphabet soup places say anything good about Trump? No, they keep acting like he's the loser. They are the losers. You are the losers. MSNBC, you are the loser. Rachel Maddow, you are the loser. I mean, Chris Wallace, I know you're with Fox News and everything, but what were you thinking? What were you smoking? Attacking Trump the way you did. I mean, and it doesn't work. Even who's the blondie that was on Fox News? I already forgot her. Everybody thought she was the big one. She was the evening news. What's her name? I don't even remember her name now. But she started going against Trump in that fancy white outfit she was in and tried to, think she was so cool for coming up with a gotcha question here and there. Whatever her name was. She's gone for Fox. She's kind of into oblivion. She went with a major network and it doesn't work. You go against Trump, you're going to pay the price because Trump is a fighter and he's a victor. And even the handicappers and the pollsters keep giving Biden and the left the edge on everything, even though they've been wrong every time in the past, including this time. They're crazy enough to say that Biden is going to win this election. The media is saying he's already won. There's a lot of people, rhino Republicans and defectors like Mitt Romney, who's a wannabe, who would love to be president. He's lusting for it so bad, he can't say anything good about Trump right now. They're actually trying to say that Biden's going to win. No, like Harrison Ford said, the liberal actor he is, but I'll pretend he's not for the moment. I'll just go by his character, Harrison Ford. Don't ever tell me the odds. The odds were, I don't know how many 1,000 to 1 against getting through the meteor field or whatever, but Trump's the same way. Don't ever tell him the odds. He's a fighter. So watch. We're about to see the 7th match, set, point, win as Donald Trump delivers a knockout punch. Hi, I'm Jerry McGlothlin, host of Special Ops. Our guest is Rick Gates, Deputy Campaign Coordinator for Donald Trump in 2016. And I'm just going to jump right in. Rick, what's next for Donald Trump?
Jerry, thanks very much for having me. It's good to be with you again. The next thing that Donald Trump can do is wait until January 6th, which is the last constitutional step to certifying the electoral votes. Donald Trump is going to continue to challenge things legally in courts. There is a Supreme Court challenge regarding the decision that was made in Pennsylvania that was challenged to the US Supreme Court. We're waiting to hear about that and what that Supreme Court may do. But in terms of practical process, the January 6th date is the key. So now what's being talked about most recently in the media, and certainly what is on Donald Trump's mind, is the ability to impact what takes place on that day. And that's where we have the joint chambers of Congress come together, and Mike Pence presides over a session where the electoral votes that were cast on December 14th by the electors of each state will then be certified by Congress. And that is kind of the last official step in making, the candidate the next president-elect. So
well, do you think they're going to certify Arizona? I hear some rumblings that they're going to take an alternate slate.
yes, and this is where it gets good. And if you remember, we talked a few weeks about why certain states, the Republican electors in those states, went ahead and cast their votes, even though Biden technically won the state. Well, it's for this very reason. We get to January 6th. If there is any contention, any opposition to any state's electoral voting, then the vice president, along with Congress, has the ability to overturn that. So this is where it gets interesting. In Arizona, for example, yes, Rudy Giuliani is discussing the high likelihood of the Arizona legislature overturning those elector votes and giving them to Donald Trump.
Wow, that's setting a precedent, isn't that?
Well, it absolutely is. I mean, look, all this is unprecedented, right? I mean, we're getting into constitutional, issues and actions that we've never crossed the threshold before. So, in a large way, yes, it's fascinating to go through. So that is a key consideration. So we not only have to watch Arizona, but now you start watching Georgia, where, as you may be aware, the Secretary of State initially was going to do an audit of a specific county, Cobb County, with the signature ballot, the signatures on the ballots. Now that's been expanded to statewide. So I think it's extremely important to watch these developments and others because I think they'll have a collective effect and impact on what happens. And remember, we talked about this, the president has between now and January 6th. So he's got some time to really ramp up, any electoral fraud evidence, any other thing that he can do, and certainly continues to build the support, that he has among his Republican base and the Republican leaders in each state.
Well, that's only 15 days away, but we have Christmas, we have New Year's. We're going to blink and we're going to be looking at, okay, what is the date today? Oh my goodness, we're back to work and hey, January 6th is in 3 days.
Sure, but it's still 15 days that we otherwise wouldn't have. So there is still hope. Of course, it's a long shot. There are a lot of things that can happen, but I think that's the point, is to recognize and look at each of these possibilities, because the president still has a number of possibilities, that are available to him. He has other remedies. And so, as I've always said, he's not going to concede. He's going to continue to fight. It's what he does. He knows how to do it. He does it well. And as we've talked about in the past, if there's anything this president does extremely well, it's flushing out things that, politics and politicians, typically just, kind of go with status quo. So all of this is potentially good news, for the president. He continues to move forward in his quest to, win the re-election.
Well, we have a special we're coming up with later this week about the 6 strikes, kind of like 6 punches and Trump's counter punches, and the 7th one to be a knockout punch coming on January 6th or later. I hope everybody tunes in for that. I'm Jerry McGlothlin, host of Special Ops. Our guest has been Rick Gates, former deputy campaign manager in 2016 for Donald Trump. Thank you very much, Rick, for being here.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jerry.
Jerry McGlothlin of Special Ops. Our guest is Melissa Hudson. She's a registered nurse with a master's in nurses education. She spent 30 years in the health profession, but what is she known for now besides nursing? Forgiveness. She is a forgiveness expert who describes the scientific basis of forgiving, not just a touchy-feely thing. She espouses the health benefits of forgiveness. She's the author of a book called The Common Denominator of Forgiveness. And her admonition to all of us here is, before the year ends, don't wait until New Year's, resolve to forgive somebody right now. Learn how to do it. She says your health and your happiness hang in the balance. So educate us. Forgive me for being late, for starters, but we're going now. Go ahead, Melissa.
That's okay. So normally when you think of forgiving, you think of religion. And this has nothing to do with religion. It's actually the science of forgiveness that's being studied for over 30 years, as you mentioned. So what they did was they looked at our mind and our body, and it's called mind-body medicine now. And they looked at, how does our mind affect our body? Does it affect our body? Well, they found out that about 75% of our medical problems do come from unforgiveness. So the great thing about it is we have bodies that want to be in homeostasis, meaning they want to be equal, they want to be healed. So if we forgive, the benefit is, in many cases, you can get better, and sometimes you can actually, your body will heal itself if you forgive. So that's the thing, if you forgive. People can be reluctant to forgiving for numerous reasons. A lot of times people think that they shouldn't forgive because what the person did was way too bad for them to forgive. But the thing about it is now, if you look at the science side of it, is you've got something to lose if you don't forgive. We've never really known that in the past. Now we know you can get cancer if you don't forgive. Now we know you can have heart attacks. 75% of your problems can come from unforgiveness.
Wow. Who could argue with the science there?
Yeah.
Why is it so hard for people to, is it they don't believe that, or is it difficult for people to forgive?
Well, it's difficult for people to forgive because, like I said before, sometimes they think they're letting a person off the hook if they forgive. So they don't forgive because of that. And some people feel like they have some kind of power over the other person if they don't forgive. So that's the thoughts that we've had in the past. But today, what I want to encourage people to do, because most people don't have this information yet, is encourage people to think about it this way, is it's like you drinking poison and thinking the other person's going to die. The poison's killing you. It's not affecting them at all. And now we have the medical science to prove it, which we haven't had in the past. So, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, what about big picture stuff across the country? Like, I could just think of only two things for national reconciliation that would require forgiveness. It's simple. The Biden people need to forgive Trump, and the Trump people need to forgive Biden. There's about 75 million people on each side. Hey, easy. What's the biggie?
That would, I know.
I don't want to forgive him.
Wouldn't it be great if we could have, yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great if they could agree to disagree and all that before they got to where we are. But yeah, people often don't want to forgive. But like I said, what I have found in the past is most people just don't realize that their bodies literally become toxic if they don't forgive. And that's because of the response that our brain has in relation to unforgiveness. So our body has a response. Our subconscious mind will remember the situation. You don't know anything about it going on, but it has a trigger. It remembers the situation. It releases the hormones like it did the very first time it was happening, only this time it's not happening, and so the hormones stay there. And then this keeps happening for years.
It's kind of like post-traumatic shock. A soldier comes back, they still hear those bombs going off, and their buddy got killed before them, and he just can't forgive the person who shot the person, or the same thing with gang violence or anything else. And it has nothing to do with right and wrong. Whether somebody is killed righteously or wrongfully, whether they're given capital punishment by the government, or whether they're shot in an alley, it's all cortisol and similar hormones and it triggers, right? I mean, talk a little bit about post-traumatic shock when you might have to forgive somebody more than once for the same
Right.
thing. You think you forgave them, but did you really forgive them? Is it
That's
possible?
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, and that's one of the things that I've included in the book is a process to forgiveness that I use, but I also included there are 3 pioneers in the study of forgiveness that I've been communicating with over the past 5 years, and I added theirs in there too, which they're very similar. But there is a way that you can forgive, and one of the reasons that you can do it is because you control your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind believes what you tell it. So right now, your subconscious mind has that negative emotion associated with an event and a person. Now you're going to reprogram it over the next 28 days. It can only think negative or positive. So you can reprogram it.
Okay, we have 3 holidays here. Past was Thanksgiving, recent past. Present is Hanukkah, and future is Christmas. Regardless of which of the 3 it is, let's say we got a mother-in-law or a father-in-law or that uncle that comes out of the attic once in a while, and we just got done forgiving him for what he or she did last time, and now we know they're going to repeat the same thing again. What happens when you forgave somebody for something and their actions again are reoccurring?
Right. So one thing that you can kind of remember is that hurt people will hurt people. So a lot of times, if those people lash out at you or whatever they do that hurts you, they're hurting, and that's the reason why they do it. Now, it doesn't give them any excuse, of course, but it can help you understand, maybe, and be a little bit more compassionate, if you will, to that person, knowing that there's probably something going on in them that causes them to do that. And like I said, yeah, and like I said, I think just knowing that in the long run, they can do and say whatever they want, but for you to be happy, for you to be healthy, you have to forgive. I've got this one quote, and it says, when you hold resentment towards another, you're bound to the person or condition by an emotional link that is stronger than steel. Forgiveness is the only way to dissolve the link and get free. So if you can only imagine it being my ex-husband that I was, upset with, we were in cufflinks, so that's the strongest steel. The only way I can get away from him is to forgive. That's the only way. And fortunately, we have the minds that are incredible. Genius that we can actually heal our own bodies the way that we do. Every single day, almost, we heal ourselves from cancer and other viruses that are out there. So,
well, what about people like me that are sometimes tempted to forgive somebody in advance or for what I'm about to do, or they could forgive me for what I'm about to do. Does that count if you know before you do something, you're going to do something rotten and immediately afterwards say, I'm sorry, forgive me? I mean, where do you draw the line on here? I mean, wasn't there something in scripture about how many times you're supposed to forgive? Let's address that one.
That's a lot. That's 70 times 7. So that's a whole lot of times. I think that, so you're basically saying you're the one that's doing it. You're going to.
Either way, I mean,
Right.
So what if I was holding off for number 491? I'm white knuckling it 70 times 7, or there was 489 times he did this, 490 times. Oh, good, do it again, make my day. I'm not forgiving you now. Forgive me, speaking of forgiveness, we're at the break. The book is called The Common Denominator is Unforgiveness. Where can we get a copy of your book?
You can go on Amazon and get a copy, or Barnes and Nobles. I've been told that they're at Target now. I'm not sure for that one, but yeah, you could get one any of those places. Also, melindacares.com is my website, and there'll be blogs there and also a link to be able to get the book.
Our guest today is Stephen Wolford on our video online program, Special Ops. And Stephen, welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh my goodness, you look a little bit like Santa Claus with a red top. Does that make a statement about red republicanism or something? Wait, hold on. What's going on? Oh my, oh my. What are we doing here? Get a look at this.
Every year I grow my beard out and my mustache so I can deliver toys on my motorcycle.
You gotta be for real.
I'm going to do that on Saturday with the First Baptist Church. We're going to deliver toys throughout Wilson County for underprivileged children and stuff. So
I can't help it, but I'm picturing you on a motorcycle now with a big old shotgun on your back, one hand on your handlebars, the other one on a shotgun, protecting the community. Because I know you are famous for protecting people in that church. It was a biggest mass murder in the history of Texas, and you went out there driving your car after the guy until he crashed into a tree. Maybe you don't want to talk about that because everybody asks you about that one.
well, everybody asks me about that. And if they want to hear more details, they can go out there and just Google my name. They can find all that.
That'd be Stephen, Stephen Williford, Willeford. I'll make a deal, Stephen. I'll give you the floor and I won't interrupt you for a while if you switch hats. How's that sound?
Well, I was hoping it was more interview style so we could have some interaction, but what's going on right now with our political scene with, Joe Biden claiming to be the president-elect and Donald Trump not conceding. And it's looking like it's coming to a head real soon. And whether it's still up in the air, everybody seems to think that Joe Biden's going to be our next president. I'm hoping that that's not necessarily so, because everybody knows that they cheated. And they
Well, I have an advantage here. Even if I'm a college dropout, which I am, I still learn every time from my guests. And I had two guests back to back that were terrific. You being the third one, I've got the trifecta now. Rick Gates, deputy campaign chairman for Donald Trump in 2016, informed me that on January 3rd, there's a vote for Speaker of the House, and it might not be Nancy Pelosi. And then on January 6th, the Senate and the House in a combined session get together and review the electoral votes, including the alternate slate of delegates for the swing states that Trump had presented. So it's not over. And then I had another guest, an amazing man. His name is David Schistokas, and he is an election hearing officer in Chicago that went with about 35 or 45 people all the way to Pennsylvania. And they get there and they're not allowed in. They're not allowed to watch the votes. So just banned completely. And we've seen these things where they're blocking the windows and taking votes out from suitcases, etc. So these two people who are far smarter than I am on election issues are saying it's not over, and that President Pence could be the interim president. And it's going to be decided in the Senate most likely. And it might only be for 2 or 3 days, but the 46th president of the United States might be Michael Pence. And then a few days later, President Trump, because when it's thrown into the House, we talk about typically the Senate would determine the vice president and the House would determine the president. However, in a case like this, where there's a dispute, the man who is over both sessions, the combined House and Senate, is Michael Pence. And our founding fathers set this into motion because they don't want tyrants to rule. So Mike Pence is the president of the Senate and the vice president of the United States. And the more powerful position coming up January 2nd is being the president of the Senate. So it looks very, very hopeful for Donald Trump. The more evidence they got, the better. They keep on putting out there. And the more they present the evidence, the more the media would say there is no evidence, because there's nothing at all that could be presented that the lamestream media would actually view as evidence. Even if you had eyewitnesses, millions of them, watching windows completely blocked from election watchers, they still say that's not evidence of any wrongdoing. And guess what? That happened. I'm one of those millions of people who watched. There were millions of people to watch suitcases of votes pulled up from underneath tables. And of course, you've got the voting machines, the irregularities, all the mathematical impossibilities, etc. All that is going to come to the House and the Senate. And there's about 10 key representatives who have to find their courage, who get together and finally say, okay, we are not accepting those electoral slates. So that's where we stand right now. Very hopeful.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you that if Biden does somehow pull this off, we have to put in some safeguards. I know here in Texas, we have Steve Toth as a state representative, and he represents around the Houston area. And he has brought out House Bill 112 here in Texas. And what 112 says is that the state of Texas will not recognize any federal gun laws anymore. And the state of Texas has a constitution that says that it will not infringe on gun rights and stuff. And so other states, and I understand that Missouri has now done the same thing. Other states are starting to wake up to the fact that, first off, the federal government doesn't have the right to impose laws like this on the state. Even if it wasn't for the Second Amendment, the only power the federal government has over states is through interstate commerce. So that's saying that if the gun is created here in Texas, sold only in Texas, and does not cross state lines, then the federal government really doesn't have any right to ban or confiscate anything or create any laws over the state. We have allowed the federal government to get away with way too much for far too long.
Well, in Texas, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it the only state in the union that actually reserves the right to secede from the union?
We actually did when Texas was its own country, and we joined these United States. A lot of people don't know that Texas is the only state in the union that has the right to fly our flag at the same level as the American flag also.
Well, some people are talking about secession, and there's two different definitions. One is secession, like if something were to happen to Joe Biden, if he were president, the next one in line for secession would be Kamala Harris. But there's another secession, meaning whether some states would actually secede from the union. And the question is, can they succeed at exceeding without triggering a civil war? I mean, these are legitimate questions. Even Alan West from your state of Texas is bringing it up right now.
Also, our chairman of our Republican Party of Texas, Colonel Alan West, and you know him well, don't you?
Yeah, so, Colonel Alan West, brave soul.
Alan West has suggested that maybe we should have a union of constitutional states. The states that do things constitutionally should unite together and not leave the United States, but at least unite together and say, we will not recognize anything that is unconstitutional. And so I love Alan West. I'm glad he's a Texan. You know, some people said, oh, he's from Florida. You know, he was a congressman in Florida. He doesn't belong in Texas. He's not a Texan. And I'm going to tell you and all the rest of the Texans that think that way, the greatest Texans you can think of, Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone, William Travis, none of them were Texans originally. They came here. Texas is more of a state of mind than it is a geographical location.
Right, even people as far north as it looks like where you're from right now. By the way, speaking of that, there's a joke. What nationality is Santa Claus?
Okay, I'll bite.
North Polish.
North Polish. Very good. Very good.
Well, tell us about gun rights, where we can learn more about them, etc. And the one who brought you to this dance is the Second Amendment Foundation, or the Citizens Committee for the Rights to Keep and Bear Arms, and where people could get hold of information from them.
Well, go to Second Amendment Foundation at saf.org. Go sign up. It's time to start standing for your rights. And
It's
Educate yourself.
I'm not sure I got that right. S is in Sally, A, F is in Frank, .org, not .com, but .org. So SAF.org. Got it.
SAF.org. I'm sorry. But yeah, go get signed up with Second Amendment Foundation. Help, let them help fight for our rights and stuff. Our constitutional rights are being just given away, and they think that they can do that, but they cannot. You know.
Well, don't mess with Texas and don't mess with this future, if it comes together, confederation of states that will not allow the feds to stomp all over them. Well, we're up against the clock. Stephen Williford, always nice to have you. Got to have you back. And I'm going to let you deliver some of that good cheer.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Hi, I'm Jerry McGlothlin with Special Ops. My guest today is Glenn Caroline, veteran grassroots gun rights organizer, director of external affairs for Second Amendment Foundation and the Citizens Committee to Keep and Bear Arms. For 29 years, he was with the, I'm not sure. I know he had 29 years of experience in the Second Amendment movement. I'm not sure how many years were under the NRA. You know, he can mention that if he likes, but his entire professional life has been dedicated to the Second Amendment cause and preservation of America's liberties. So Glenn, welcome to the program. We're going to talk about what a potential Joe Biden administration might look like for gun rights and how that would compare and contrast to Donald Trump. We're not throwing in the towel. We're still hopeful that Donald Trump will make it on January 6th with the joint session of Congress, but the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Jerry. And yeah, just as clarification, 28 and a half of those 29 years were with the National Rifle Association. I joined the Second Amendment Foundation, the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, the spring of this year, and have been working to build their grassroots advocacy programs ever since. And I think you hit on it in the introduction. I think we need to pray and work for the best, but prepare for the worst, with the assumption that if there is a Biden-Harris administration, it's going to look a lot different for gun owners than it did over the past 4 years under President Trump, not the least of which will be the judicial appointments that come out of a Biden-Harris White House will look starkly different as it pertains to support of the Constitution and the Second Amendment in particular than did those justices appointed by President Trump. And I think we will see every old, tired gun control proposal from the last 2 decades dusted off and tried to push through Congress. So I think while all hope is not lost yet, as you noted, I think we do need to be prepared just in case we have to dig in our heels and work a fight to protect our Second Amendment rights moving forward.
Couldn't agree with you more. What have gun sales been like in anticipation of a possible Biden presidency?
In one word, I would say record sales. We just see a skyrocketing number of people choosing to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Many of these individuals are first-time gun owners who I think are realizing that with a combination of the potential of a Biden-Harris administration, they need to get while the getting is good. And I think, secondly, with all this talk throughout the country about defunding police, individual citizens are starting to become aware that at the end of the day, they are their own first responders, and many of them choose to own a firearm to protect themselves and their families. So I think it's a combination of those two things, and we're seeing record sales that I think we'll see right through the end of the Christmas holiday season.
Okay. Have you ever looked at Joe Biden's record? It's a little bit tough because it's over 47 years of quote unquote public service. He's been servicing us all right in some areas in bad ways. But has he had a migration at all? Was he at all pro-gun at one time or not quite as bad?
Well, I would just say this about Joe Biden. If you look at his record in the United States Senate, if you look at what he and his vice presidential running mate said throughout the campaign, if you look at their website, make no mistake about it, this will be an administration that's extremely aggressive in trying to curtail the rights of law-abiding citizens. Despite all his talk about unity, if he is in fact sworn in as president, I don't think that unity will apply to the nation's 100 million lawful gun owners, whether it's banning certain classes of firearms or magazines, or banning private transfers of sales, or ending funding for armed educators in our classroom, or licensing or registration, you can expect to see a full-on assault on our Second Amendment rights under a Harris-Biden or Biden-Harris administration, depending how you want to look at it.
Yeah, it's ironic that you say Harris first there, because there's very few people that really think Joe Biden is going to make 4 terms if he gets in there 4 years. And I view Kamala Harris as kind of a Jezebel type person who wants to assume the throne and wouldn't be happy with playing second fiddle. For those who just joined in, Glenn Caroline is our guest here on Special Ops. I'm your host, Jerry McGlothlin. Glenn is the Director of External Affairs for the Second Amendment Foundation and also for the Citizens Committee to Keep and Bear Arms. Glenn, I'd like to, on a practical matter, just talk about what the average person could do. Say somebody has toyed with the idea of obtaining a firearm, but they're not really sure how to go about it. It's a daunting thing in their mind and a little intimidating, and they may think it's more complicated than it is. How complicated is it? What do they need to do? Let's say an average woman, it could be a man for that matter, the average woman watching this right now says, I would like to own a gun. I would like to protect myself, but I don't know the first thing about this. Take them through the steps.
I think the first thing any first-time gun owner should consider is, what are the reasons you choose to own the gun? It's a different discussion if one seeks to own a gun for hunting or competitive shooting than it is for self-defense. The latter reason being the primary reason most people choose to own a gun. And then what I would recommend is to speak to somebody who's knowledgeable of firearms, be that a family friend, a relative, an employee at a local gun store, to just get a feel for what's involved with gun ownership, what types of firearms might be best suited for the individual needs that this individual seeks to own it. And ideally, somebody would go out and actually, with a trained or well-educated gun owner, shoot a variety of guns to get a feel for what may be a best fit for this individual person, to get a good safety lesson, be that a formalized training lesson or just working voluntarily with somebody who has experience with firearms, and then researching the various laws, Jerry, because while some states make it relatively easy to purchase a firearm, other states make it very, very complex. Each state has its own set of rules and regulations, some more restrictive than others. So it's important, I think, for any potential gun buyer to make sure that they're educated, safe, responsible, and knowledgeable about the laws and responsibilities that go along with owning a firearm. And there are a number of formal and informal resources available to people all across the country.
And speaking of those resources, could you please slowly give out your web address so that people could obtain some information on firearms ownership, training, and so forth?
The Second Amendment Foundation's website is very simple. It's www.saf.org, saf.org. And I think that's a great first one-stop shopping place to go for gun owners who want to learn more about firearms, litigation, legislation, how they can get involved in the fight to protect our Second Amendment rights. So saf.org, I think, is the best resource.
Okay, that's S as in Sally, A as in Apple, F as in foundation.org, not .com, it's .org. So saf.org. Final remarks before we go.
I just think it's important that anybody considering buying a gun for the first time do so responsibly and try to educate themselves to the best that they can. And I think we have to understand that with rights come responsibilities. And I believe one of those responsibilities is to actively engage in the campaign to defend our rights. Second Amendment Foundation has a program called the 2A First Responders, which is our grassroots volunteer program. And I encourage anybody, whether they're a gun owner or not, anybody who believes in liberty and is concerned about attacks on our Second Amendment rights, to go to that website and take a look at the First Responders program and consider getting involved. All we're asking for are people's time, not their money. We need individuals to write letters to the editor, to use their social media to be force multipliers, to educate out of the gun owners, to register voters, and to make their views known to their lawmakers when bills are pending in their state capital in Washington, D.C.
Excellent. And I would like to just end on the note that there's, depending on who's counting, 50 million to 100 million gun owners in the United States today. And let me ask you, how often do you ever see somebody randomly in Topeka, Kansas or something, in the middle of the suburbs or on the farm or whatever, just go out and shoot somebody because they got a gun? So every single day, there's 50 to 100 million approximately, maybe more, gun owners, guns out there, millions and millions of guns out there. A lot of gun owners own more than one. And we don't see incidences of these law-abiding gun owners. Where we see the incidences is where liberal politicians demand that we keep the police away, we defund the police, and we're allowing people, inviting them to riot in the inner cities here with illegal gun ownership. So it's a total difference of night and day between the two. And I'm glad that Glenn Carolyn was here to enlighten us on a lot of these issues. Thank you for joining us. We'll definitely have to have you back.
Howdy, y'all. Joe Sixpack here for Special Ops. Given the fact that we're going into the holiday season and we're all Americans, and that's really what matters, I had a great experience today. I went to check out a job, and I could tell that the guy that I was dealing with was a left-leaner, let's put it that way. But the thing is that we had a great discussion. We were talking back and forth about traveling, about how much we loved it out west. I mean, we were right there, neck and neck. And then I told him that I had written a book, and I told him the title, Socialism Sucks, Your Money from Your Pocket. And he just said flat out, hey, I'm a socialist. And I was like, you know what? I kind of knew that. I said, but you know what? You're old school. This guy was 72 years old. He was telling me stories. He's like, man, I got nailed with marijuana. He's like, I'm the only one of my family who went to jail. I slapped my knee and I'm like, hell yeah, brother. I was like, I'm cool with all of that. You know what? I was like, me too. I was like, there's a sign in my house that says, a good friend will come down and bail you out of jail. But your best friend will be sitting next to you saying, damn, that was fun. And we busted over that. And we had a great time. And I think I'm going to go out there and shoot a video with that guy. Because, man, we had a ball. And the bottom line is we were coming at the same ideals, but just from 180-degree difference. And I said to him, I'm like, man, Democrat, Republican, those are two wings on the same bird. It's all about helping people. But, my thing is, there is no charity without capitalism. And his thing is, well, it has to come from the institutional side. But you know what? Me and him, a couple of hell-raising SOBs, we sat there and had a great time. I spent 45 minutes with the guy, and I want to go back. We need to get it together. It's not Democrat versus Republican. It's them on Capitol Hill versus we the people. Take that to heart when you go into the holiday season. Merry Christmas, and God bless.